thanks very much for joining us. You're watching Talking Europe, France 24's weekly appointment with European decision makers. Well, this week I'm very pleased to speak to the European Commissioner from Bulgaria, whose portfolio covers innovation, research, youth, culture and sport. It's a diverse one. Mariya Gabriel, thanks very much for joining us on the programme from Sofia.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start off with, of course, the biggest news story of the whole of 2020, coronavirus, and news particularly about vaccines, which are so important to people here in Europe. There's been some real impatience, I think we can say, about Europeans wanting to get hold of these vaccines. Now, there has been some talk of EU member states waiting to deploy these vaccines, wanting to coordinate with other member states. It's a great show of European solidarity, but some saying, wouldn't it be better to just get the vaccines out as quickly as possible, even if one member state is a couple of days behind the other?
Well, there is two elements here. First, a safe and effective vaccine accessible to all in Europe and around the globe is the really lasting exit strategy from the pandemic. And I think that here our member states have shown an extraordinary unity and solidarity, because that's exactly the essence of the European approach on vaccines. At the same time, all member states will receive vaccines in order really to be sure that all our European citizens will have access to this. So that means that since the beginning, our European strategy was really to secure vaccine supplies for member states and their citizens. And that's why now for the vaccination, the vaccine deployment, we are working closely with all of them.
Now, it is true that the European Union states are behind some other major world economies in getting these vaccines out to their citizens. What do you say to those people who would assert that the EU should or could have moved faster?
Well, we are talking here about how to ensure the highest level of protection to citizens during the course of a mass vaccination campaign. And here, with the European medicine agencies, we are talking about a conditional marketing authorization. That requires a higher level of evidence to be submitted and checked than a temporary use authorization, like in UK, for example. And I think that it's really important here that we have all the necessary data. Those data are checked, and the decision that we'll receive from EMA will be based on this, because that will be the base of the trust of our citizens. And that's why I'm very glad that for us in European Union, there is main criteria is the health of our people, and all the other criteria is very strict about data, secondary effects, and the necessary information that we need to have. We all respect this very strictly.
Well, as you mentioned, the UK has been deploying the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine since early December. I'd like to take a closer look with you and also with our viewers right now at a claim by the British Health Minister that his government has been able to move faster than its EU neighbours because of Brexit. Now, this has been disproved, actually, since by other British officials. Let's take a look at this explainer by Mathilde Benezet and Luke Brown.
Did Brexit help the United Kingdom roll out the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine sooner than other European countries? In early December, Matt Hancock, the UK's health minister, announced,
"Because of Brexit, we've been able to make a decision based on the UK regulator, a world-class regulator, and not go at the pace of the Europeans, who are moving a little bit more slowly."
That's false. While the United Kingdom did become the first Western nation to start vaccinating its citizens, since January the 31st and up to December the 31st, the UK and the EU remain tied together in the Brexit transition period. And during that time, the UK still has to obey European rules. In fact, it's an EU rule that allowed the UK to get a head start on other member states who could have used it if they'd wanted. Vaccines do indeed need to be approved for use in Europe by the European Medicines Agency, the EMA. But all member states can use an emergency measure to temporarily authorise vaccines for their citizens if they face a health crisis, for example, a pandemic. And what's more, if British citizens today have access to the vaccine, it's in part thanks to European funds. In June, the European Investment Bank loaned the German laboratory BioNTech €100 million that allowed the lab behind the vaccine to ramp up production of its drug. So in reality, British citizens, Brexiteers or Remainers, do have the EU to thank for something.
Mariya Gabriel, that claim by Matt Hancock disproved, as we've just heard. As a member of the European Commission, what do you make of this? Do you believe that this was a genuine misunderstanding or perhaps a sign of more combative relations between the United Kingdom's government and European neighbours?
Well, maybe there is explanations like this, but here we are talking about the health of our citizens, and I think that everyone should be responsible, especially when we talk in our public space, because yes, it's true that this decision, it's not for a general or market authorization. That's an authorization for temporary use in an emergency situation. That's something different. Second point, I was in contact with BioNTech since the beginning of this crisis, and I know all the efforts that we have made in order to support them in these critical moments, especially May, June, and that's why that was 11th of June that we support them with 100 million euros with the European Investment Bank. So what is important here is immediately to say what are the facts, really to be very responsible, because we are taking here decisions based on science, they are evidence-based, and we are talking about the health of our citizens. There is no exit of this situation if the vaccination is not accepted, if our citizens don't have trust in this. And that's our common responsibility, to bring messages in the public space only that are science-based and that are really based on facts.
I'd like to talk about another element of your personal responsibilities as Commissioner, youth. Young people are among the worst impacted by the pandemic, economically speaking. Youth unemployment in the EU has risen to an average of 17.5%. Of course, many young people having to do their education online, missing out on internships, that kind of thing. What will the Commission do to facilitate their recovery?
First, I want to say thank you. Thank you to our young people, because it's true that they are in very difficult situation, but what they have shown, it's an extraordinary resilience and capacity to adapt themselves to the new realities. That's why, first, I'm so glad that we send a very strong signal of support with the budget for the next Erasmus Plus program, doubling the budget. That means more than 10 million people in the new program. At the same time, what was good is to take some lessons learned from this crisis in order to adapt better our instruments to support young people. I can give few examples. First, of course, we'll continue to talk about blended mobility, because we have seen that virtual mobility can't replace the physical mobility, but that allow our young people to start to exchange and to participate in projects. And that will be one of the newest elements. The second one, we need really to continue with our youth guarantee. You know that was extended to the age, will cover the age of 30. And we are thinking about some very concrete proposals to allow our young people to have access to vouchers in order to create their own startups or enterprises. But for me, what is important too is that we'll pay attention to the greening. So we'll propose a new green Erasmus in order to engage more our young people in this ambition. We'll have particular attention paid to the vocational education and training. We know that there is a huge need for the new realities of our economy, and that's why we are proposing to create 50 centers of excellence everywhere in our member states. And finally, something very concrete, digital opportunity traineeship. That was a program that I launched when I was digital commissioner 2 years ago. More than 12,000 students profited from this opportunity. Now we would like to extend this to teachers and vocational education and training. And I think that it's a very good opportunity for our young people to be in direct contact with enterprises, to have at least 500 euros per month paid by the European Commission. And of course, after, with new digital competencies and skills, to acquire new knowledge and give them more perspective for professional development.
Here in France, we've had demonstrations about the culture sector being impacted so heavily by the coronavirus pandemic. The Commission has taken some measures to support culture, but people are asking, what more do you want to be doing at the European level?
First, culture is Europe's soul. We all know that without culture there is no future, and I'm so glad that during the crisis we already all have seen how important is cultural content and the creativity of our artists in order really to pass this difficult situation. Now, a few elements. First, 60% of increase for Creative Europe program. Very strong signal of support for our creators. Second, for the first time, I would like to bring to the attention of our creators and artists, for the first time in the new Horizon Europe program, there will be a new cluster dedicated to culture and creativity with a budget of 900 million euros. And with the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, we'll create a new KIC, Community of Innovation and Communication, dedicated to culture and creative sectors. We are talking about 8 million people, 8 million jobs. We are talking about 4% of the European GDP. That's why, last message, I think that we have to continue with our demand to member states to dedicate at least 2% in their recovery and resilience facility national strategies to culture and creative sectors.
Mariya Gabriel, European Commissioner, thank you so much for being our guest. We are out of time, unfortunately. Well, thanks to you for watching the programme as well. And do stay tuned to France 24. More European news coming up very soon.